Hey, look at this. I never saw anything like this before.
Gremlins are evil, mechanical, mischievous meanies that first came into mainstream popularity during the Second World War, in which several pilots had claimed that they were the reason that their planes failed.
That's the same Gremlins brought down our planes in the big one.
Big one.
That's right. World War II.
And ever since, they've been appearing everywhere, though mainly in the media, spanning across children's stories to cartoons to even mainstream television shows. But in this film, writer Chris Columbus spins those stories off into an original story for the creatures, set in the picture-perfect postcard town of Kingston Falls, which one would imagine is a spin on It's a Wonderful Life's Bedford Falls, which is actually shown later in the film. How's that for a paradox? You're sitting down watching Gremlins, then they show It's a Wonderful Life in the movie that they are watching. So now you just become a person watching a movie in which people are watching a movie. And it just so happens to be the scene where Jimmy Stewart's character is running by a movie theater, which is playing The Bells of St. Mary's, starring Bing Crosby. So just try and digest that. Overall, the story surrounds Billy Peltzer, son of inventor Randall Peltzer, who just returned from New York City, later explained in the sequel, where he picked up, of all things for his son, a creature named a mogwai from an old antique store. Although, to be honest, it's kind of funny to see this guy giving his son a pet for Christmas when he's like, what, 18, 19 years old? And another thing, why is he hanging around with a little kid like through the whole film? Is this supposed to be his best friend? Well, come to find out, the part of Billy Peltzer was originally written for a 12 to 14-year-old kid, but Warner Brothers didn't want to have the kid fighting with swords or fending off chainsaws in the movie, so instead they upped the age of the actor, but didn't change some of the more essential characteristics surrounding the actual character. So Billy lives in a small town, which looks vaguely familiar. Where have I seen that? Oh yeah, that's right. Fun fact, the movies shown on the marquee here in the intro actually were the working titles of other Spielberg films. A Boy's Life later became known as E.T., and Watch the Skies was later retitled Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So Billy heads to work with his pup at the bank that's run by this old lady, as his neighbor, Mr. Futterman, who was briefly introduced in the beginning, stares on in the background looking confused as she talks to some people about foreclosing on their house. Billy doesn't like her, needless to say, and neither does his dog. So to blow off some steam, he heads off to the bar after work to draw. Yeah, since when have you heard that? Hey son, what are you doing after work?
Well, I'm going to head off to the bar and draw.
Alright son, don't draw too much. At least he's doing it for someone worthy of the title artist, showing his work off to the late Mr. Chuck Jones. Fast forward to Billy being home, and surprise, surprise, you got a little critter for Christmas. No, not that critter. I would imagine that Billy didn't do the greatest in school, just for the simple fact that no questions ever arise about this species. I realized that back then there wasn't any Google or Wikipedia, so you couldn't just type in mogwai and find out stuff about him. But you would at least think that he would go to the library and try to research the subject. But nope, no questions whatsoever. Here son, here's a cute thing.
Gee, thanks, Dad.
Let's leave it to Billy. So Billy welcomes the little guy that he names Gizmo into his life after being told of the 3 sacred rules for caring for him. Never get it wet, never expose it to light, and never, ever, ever let it eat after midnight. So Billy listens to his dad for all about a day, and almost right away Billy breaks one of the rules when his friend comes over and spills water on Gizmo, causing him to spawn 5 new mogwais.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new ones. Now can I have one?
Billy takes this pretty calmly, now having 5 more mouths to feed, and just sticks them all in a box while he watches Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Then he helps make that movie come to life by feeding the mogwais after midnight, causing them to transform. So they hatch, and the tear begins, with everyone in town fighting them off in a mad hysteria, just trying to grasp what the heck is going on. It's here where we see the first bits of carnage, in fact, that led the MPAA to develop the PG-13 rating. Needless to say, these guys don't take pity on the jolliest of people. One thing I find interesting about all this is that originally, the script never called for Stripe, the leader of the Gremlins, to even exist. The character was supposed to be Gizmo, but Steven Spielberg stepped in and said no, stating that the audience didn't want to see him turn into a monster. And who wouldn't agree with that? Overall, the film's a cult classic, and generally one that I find myself watching every holiday season. And despite some of the dark humor that comes up in conversation, I tend to think of the better parts of the story, and sit back, relax, and enjoy it.